Live from Miami, Florida, broadcasting around the world. You're listening to Patriots Perspective with Christy Tasker. Your news behind the government's facade. Don't fall victim to propaganda or spend another 30 days in the tech gulag. Turn off your tell-lie vision and just listen. Hear the most mind-opening hours of your life as we interview whistleblowers and real patriots for uncensored truth. The Commie News Network and Fake Book cannot control the power of Jesus Christ. Therefore, they have no power over us. There aren't enough Vegas strippers to fake check what's coming. Put in your earphones and avoid the tech tyrants. Subscribe to patriotsperspective.com now and see the evidence and action items to help you take back your God-given rights, government, and expose Satan and his demons taking up residence in your community. Be sure to hit the like or rumble button and comment to tell us where you're holding the line.
Okay, let's see, Dr. Corsi, if you can hear me now. Welcome back to Patriots Perspective, everybody. And of course, now both computers are going to start working at the same time simultaneously when I'm about to introduce you to the amazing, to the one and only Dr. Jerome Corsi, who has been attacked in ways that we cannot even imagine, both professionally, personally. He was going to be indicted by the same crony who is now under indictment. Dr. Corsi, welcome back to Patriots Perspective. I'm grateful to have you back here today to talk about the indictment of our former FBI director, James. I call him Comey. I almost can't even call him Comey because I've been calling him Comey for so long. Yeah, you know all about the Comey.
I sure do. It's great to be back with you, Christy. Thank you. Looking forward to it. Go ahead. Why don't you start?
Yeah. Did you hear what I was saying?
Yes, I did. I heard it.
Okay.
I can start into it.
I just wanted to ask, what was the first thing that happened to you with, how did you get involved? Take us down the path of like your research, how you even got into the eyes of the FBI.
Well, if you follow me at CorsiNation.com and then God's Five Stones, you can see I don't hesitate to get into fights, difficult issues. I've was researching. I worked with Donald Trump in 2000, every one of his presidential campaigns, not as a member of the campaign, but I strongly supported him in the writing I did. In 2015, I worked strongly with Roger Stone. We talked almost every day. And the Mueller investigation or the Mueller investigation, whichever one you want to say, I like to say Mueller because that's the way it's pronounced in German. Mm-hmm. Mueller was an espionage top agent for Hitler. There was a long history of Mueller in Germany. At any rate, they decided I had the link to Julian Assange, the whole investigation. Which started under, this whole thing started under Comey. It goes back to early period of time in 2016. The Democrats had the emails stolen from their Democratic National Committee computer, if you'll recall, in 2016. And that was a big deal because the emails had damaging information into them, which would severely hurt Hillary's presidential hopes. And Hillary said immediately that Russia stole the emails. Now, I knew Russia did not steal the emails. It was not technically possible. And in 2015, 2016, I had very good briefings on exactly how the Democratic committee's computers worked. And the emails were stolen out of a particular email server that I believe was stolen with a thumb drive, simply because of the amount of time that was recorded in the theft. And the thumb drive probably belonged to Seth Rich. Now, Seth Rich would have taken most damaging files he could find, and he put them up on he gave them to Julian Assange, who put them up on WikiLeaks. I wrote a book on all this called Coup d'etat.
Coup d'etat. So let's break it down for the audience who may be brand new at like first hearing about all this, who has not been following. Okay, so who is Seth Rich? Tell everybody who's Seth Rich.
Seth Rich worked for the Democratic National Committee in Washington, and he was a supporter of Bernie Sanders, the socialist congressman who ran for president in 2016 against Hillary. And what Seth Rich found was that Hillary had been cheating, together with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, to rig the primaries so that only Hillary would win. And when he found that out, Seth Rich was angry about that. And there was a couple of computer breaches and issues that really irritated him, and how Bernie Sanders was being treated by John Podesta, who was running Hillary's campaign, ultimately from the Democratic National Committee. So Seth Rich stole, I believe, these emails and got them to WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. Julian Assange published the first group of these emails in August 2016, just before the Democratic National Committee met to, coronate Hillary Clinton as being their presidential candidate. Now, the emails were so damaging to Bernie Sanders that Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigned the day the convention began, and it was a big scandal because once the delegates, the Democratic National Committee convention, read these emails, the Bernie Sanders delegates walked out in disgust. Already had a broken convention. Instead of a big televised party celebrating Hillary, you had a fight that was being broadcast between Hillary and Bernie Sanders that was detrimental to Hillary really getting the popularity boost that the DNC convention should have given her. Okay, and then Assange said he had a second.
Let's back up for 1 second, because I think there's some other important things we're missing here regarding who Julian Assange is, and because a lot of people don't know. I mean, like, it's kind of, a decade later, it's kind of like washed under the bridge. People have forgotten. And so I feel like we're like, you and I are like having to regurgitate a lot of these same things, because people are just now waking up to the fact that there is fraud within the government, there's fraud within the parties, there's division within the parties. And sometimes there are conservatives on the Democrat side who just want justice and peace, and they want their candidate that they wanted. Because I remember in 2016, I want to remind everybody, there were Bernie signs everywhere. The young population, I mean, he was like the Donald Trump of the Democrat Party, and they loved him. There was Bernie, everything, it was like he was slightly, a threat to even Trump, to the point where Trump, remember the boat in New York, the boat that went by during Bernie's speech for his campaign. I mean, so in other words, he was even a somewhat of a political threat to Trump in terms of, Trump, he was definitely on Trump's radar. So therefore, he had to have been polling well. Otherwise, President Trump wouldn't have, sent a boat by, or somebody wouldn't have sent a boat by for the Trump campaign. So I'm just reminding our audience that, Bernie Sanders was a very good prospect for the Democrat Party. Like the young people really wanted him. So, because I feel like people have kind of forgotten that, they've forgotten how many campaigners there were. I mean, I lived at the time in Wynwood here in Miami, which was like a prominent neighborhood for youngster hip artists. And it was like Bernie, 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 Bernie. And I think even those supporters were in shock when Hillary became the nominee for the Democrat Party. I remember there being like a mass shock amongst these youngsters who were out campaigning for Bernie. And then Julian Assange literally was, I mean, can you give us the timeline of Bernie, Julian Assange, because, Julian Assange is like, it seems like a disconnect, right? Like people want to go, okay, well, they want to put Julian Assange in a silo. They want to put Seth Rich in another silo as though they're not connected in some way.
Well, I mean, you gave a very good background on this, and I'm actually gonna give you some breaking news in this one as well that I have not really discussed, but I'm gonna break some news about all this. Hillary was convinced that she was going to win because if you go to gods5stones.com right now, that's God, no apostrophe in the S, FIVE, spell out 5 as a word, and then stones is plural, gods5stones.com, you'll see we found that there are algorithms in the state database, state Board of Election voter registration files that allow for the creation of millions of false voting records that yet get legitimate voter IDs. Okay, and so stolen elections is a big deal. Now, Hillary was confident she was going to win the election because she knew about these algorithms, and she was confident that they would cheat enough votes in mail-in ballot schemes to be able to win. Now, the mail-in ballot schemes were not as extensive in 2016 as they were in 2020 because we needed the pandemic in order to get the states to have a reason to allow people to vote by mail instead of going to the voting booth. But there were still enough states with mail-in ballot schemes that they could have thrown the election to Hillary, and Hillary was aware of that. Okay, now, Julian Assange has operated internationally for a long time. And what he's created WikiLeaks, and what he's famous for is for taking classified documents or documents that he gets that are stolen from government and publishing them. And they're extremely detrimental to governments when these are published because he's revealing secrets that the governments don't want people to know. And these secrets have to do with an awful lot of government malfeasance and government cheating and lying and stealing and everything else that governments typically do every day. Okay, and our government is no exception. Now, Julian Assange, when he got a hold of these emails and he destroyed Debbie Wasserman Schultz's career, I mean, she's still in Congress, I believe, but she's nowhere near as prominent as she was in 2016 after this got known. And Bernie Sanders was quirky. The kids, the younger generations liked him, and he was a real threat to Hillary Clinton to get the nomination. And of course, Hillary had lost in 2008 to Obama, and she didn't want Bernie Sanders coming along and wrecking her chances in 2016 after 2 terms of Obama. So the background is that everybody was saying what Assange said, he had more emails, and he was going to release them just before the 2016 election, and it was going to destroy Donald Trump's chances of, it was going to destroy Hillary Clinton's chances of being president. Now, everybody's trying to figure out what emails Assange still had, and I figured out that Assange had Podesta's emails. Okay, and I told this to Roger Stone. Okay, I sent Roger Stone, I did this on a trip. It was on a trip to Italy. It was our 25th wedding anniversary. My wife and I and the family went to Italy. And on the airplane flight over, I figured out that Assange had Podesta's emails. I wrote 2 books on it, Coup d'etat and Silent No More. Okay, and what the FBI intercepted that email and figured that I knew. I even described for Roger Stone what was going to be in the emails. I said that Roger Stone had better tell President Trump that the Podesta emails, when Assange releases them, will say that Hillary Clinton has a neurological condition. He's wearing special lenses on her glasses so she doesn't go into epileptic fits. And if you remember, there was a time in the campaign, it was 9/11 in 2016, when Hillary Clinton actually fainted. She fainted and had a fainting incident where the Secret Service basically threw her into a van like a side of beef. Okay. And then I also said that she was a nasty, mean, angry person and that everybody hated her, even in the campaign. She was constantly screaming at everybody working for her. And she was lazy and a bad campaigner. And all those things happened to be in the emails when they were released. Okay, there's the incident right there. You're showing it where Hillary is getting ready to go into that van. It's 9/11 in Washington, 2016. And she steps forward to do it. And she's faltering and she actually faints here. You can see her completely faint. And they just pick her up and throw her in the van and try to get around so nobody can see it. But that was a very important incident. And I watched that and reported on it at the time on CoursiNation.com. Okay, now as we go forward, and Hillary loses. And by the way, on election night, and this is something people don't generally know, election night, Hillary Clinton was screaming at her headquarters on election night in 2016 were in the Peninsula Hotel on Fifth Avenue in Washington, in New York, kind of catty corner from Trump Tower. She wanted to stay in a hotel where she could look at Trump Tower when she won. And she also was planning in the Javits Center, a big celebration. Javits Center is a lot of glass in the Javits Center. She was piercing the glass ceiling by becoming president. Okay, and early in the evening, the Clintons thought that she was going to win. And then later in the night, it started turning. And it finally turned so that Donald Trump in the middle of the night was announced to be the winner. And Hillary Clinton went insane. She started drinking heavily and screaming at everybody. And she started screaming at Obama, who's also in the Peninsula Hotel. Why didn't you guys use the algorithms to have me win? And Obama, I'm told, said to her, Hillary, you better shut up because the Secret Service is in the next room. And if you keep talking about algorithms, they're going to arrest you for treason because those algorithms are treasonous. So they got Hillary shut up.
Who said this? Okay, so who
Obama told Hillary, Hillary was complaining that they didn't use the algorithms to make her president. They didn't cheat.
Let's explain to everybody what algorithms are, because we keep hearing it. I know the public is hearing it. I'm in technology. You know what you're talking about. You know what they are. But everybody, algorithms are basically a back end of a system that can be easily manipulated. Like one line of code can add hundreds, if not thousands of votes or switch them from one candidate to another.
It's actually a complicated code, like a code you would write to transmit messages in battle to your own troops so that the enemy can't read them. And it's embedded in the code of the software, so it's very, very hard to detect. But it does allow you to create duplicate records, which are false votes, and get them special attention with their own legitimate voter ID number, even though that voter doesn't exist. That's a made-up voter. And you can then hide those clones back into the voter database and pull them out and use them when you want them used. And that's what Hillary was complaining. Why didn't you cheat to win the election for me in 2016? And Obama said, you better shut up, Hillary, because the Secret Service is right here protecting me. And if they hear you talking about algorithms and being used to cheat and win the election for you, we're all in deep trouble for treason. And that's what I've done. By the way, what we found in God's Five Stones and the work we've done there is going to be the basis of an executive order that is being prepared right now by President Trump, which is going to demand voter ID. It's going to demand proof of citizenship. And in fact, I think a lot of the military are being moved into the cities. And over the weekend, it was announced that President Trump is moving the military into Portland, Oregon, finally. I think the military will be staying there to run the elections, quite frankly. So I don't think the states will get rid of the algorithms. And then Donald Trump's going to consider this a national security emergency under Article 2 of the Constitution, his powers as commander-in-chief. Donald Trump's getting ready to have the military take over the country and especially if the Democratic left continues to go insanely violent, as we saw in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Get more of this going on.
I want to point out to this just so people can see. Dr. Corsi and really understand like what code is. I mean, this is like how many lines. There's millions of lines of code in some of these softwares, if not trillions. So finding it is not easy. Sometimes if it's not searchable. It's basically like scripts on the back end that make up even an image, believe it or not. So, that's the simplest way I know to put it. Sorry, Dr. Corsi. I just want to make sure the audience really genuinely understands this is not a joke. You're not making anything up. I'm not making anything up. And that this is real. We are in dire times because of this. And, the work that you're doing is unbelievably, and it does matter. I mean, here, for those of you who don't believe that Hillary herself even said that she was drinking that night, in a 2017 speech, Hillary admitted to drinking my fair share of Chardonnay while recovering from her devastating loss in 2016. This remark was made at Wellesley College.
Wellesley, which she graduated from Wellesley College.
Okay. So she made that in a speech. So this is nothing, because Dr. Corsi, I hear, well, did she really do that? So I try to make sure that my audience really knows where to find things, that we make it where they can't even, they don't have to look too far, in other words.
Right. Well, that's good. I mean, and Hillary was drinking the hard stuff too. I mean, she was not sticking with a glass of Chardonnay. She could knock them down pretty good. Okay, and Hillary's a nasty person.
Yes.
And I've met Hillary, and she's one of the most corrupt politicians that America's ever had. She's a Marxist. She studied, Marxism at Wellesley when she was there. Hillary is a hate America, angry person. Okay, so when I figured out that Assange had Podesta's emails, I told Roger Stone, and in the last 2 weeks or so of the 2016 election, these emails were released by Assange and made public, and Hillary's campaign took a hard blow because people began to realize that even Podesta, who was managing her campaign, didn't like her. And also it came out, I told Stone this would be there too, that Hillary had violated Federal Election Commission rules with regards to the use and raising of money. And she did scams with Perkins Coie, the law firm that stole money and violated. It was a criminal scam to take money that should have gone to the state DNC parties. And that, because it was created to appear to raise money for the states, it could raise more money. And Hillary gave it to the states for 20 minutes. Then she took it back to the national DNC level, which is a crime. Okay, and so that was known. So on August 28th, 2018, 2 years after the election, when we have now the Mueller investigation, which was created by the FBI, and Comey was heading, when Comey was, prior to the election, Comey had come out and said that Hillary Clinton was excused from having a private email server because she didn't intend to misuse classified document. But that's not in the legislation. Legislation doesn't say anything about intention. Just if you use the documents inappropriately, that's a crime, whether you intended to do it or not. Okay, so then just before the election, Comey came back and said, well, we've looked at this Wiener laptop. The Wiener laptop was a laptop by Congressman Wiener, who was married to Huma Abedin, who was one of Hillary Clinton's close associates. In fact, Hillary Clinton had been giving her classified emails to Huma Abedin to put up on the Clinton private email server while she was Secretary of State. And Huma Abedin, I found this out too. Huma Abedin, I reported this, I was the first one to report it, was putting classified Hillary emails from the State Department on her Yahoo email account, where anybody could read them that had her username and password.
Well, I was going to say, and Yahoo is known it's like one of the easiest hackable email service providers out there, to the point where,
right.
Ridiculous.
Okay, so Hillary also, by the way, is bisexual. And that's another thing that features into all of this in terms of her and Bill Clinton's sexual proclivities, and they're both pretty weird. Bill Clinton was hitting upon a lot of the women interns in the White House, and was also participating with Hillary Clinton in her various escapades. So, and I researched this extensively. So now what happened on August 28th, 2018 was that the Mueller investigation created by the FBI to prove Russian collusion, which was Hillary's assertion that the Russians stole the emails from the Democratic National Committee and the Russians gave them to Assange in order to help Trump win the election. That was the basis of what was called the Steele dossier, which was another lying intelligence operation document attempting to say that Putin had co-opted Trump during the Miss America competitions which Trump was holding in Russia and through other ties. It was all fabricated and all lies. So I got called before I was the last witness called before, that's an important witness called before the Mueller investigation, and they thought they could break me and that I would give them the go-between with Assange that was my go-between, and that would be the connection with the Roger Trump to Donald Trump. That would have made the Russian collusion case, except I didn't have a tie. And they put me through hell for 40 hours over several months. You know, they'd pick me up at the hotel every day with my lawyer and drive us an unmarked FBI car to a building in Southeast Washington that had no name on it, bring us up through security. You had to turn over all of our electronics, and you would go up to a closed-in conference room and had to even be accompanied by an FBI agent to go to the restroom. You weren't allowed to be out of their watch. Okay, and this room was under surveillance.
Wait, let me ask you a question. This is before you were arrested.
I was never arrested.
Okay, so you were never arrested, and they still like held you like basically hostage.
Right. Well, I agreed to be interviewed by them, and this is how they interview you. I came in voluntarily. I was called before the grand jury. I had to go to the grand jury. So my first meeting with my attorney, David Gray, who was my local attorney in New Jersey, had never really been to Washington before. That's what I wanted because I knew Washington attorneys are too cozy with the bureaucracy because they're planning to go to work with the bureaucracy after they leave government to make a lot of money. And so they give government what government wants. Washington lawyers will sell you out in a heartbeat, even though you're their client. They don't defend you. They work with the lawyers on the other side in the government to get the best deal for themselves. So I didn't want a lawyer from Washington. And they cost an arm and a leg, spend millions of dollars for Washington attorneys, and they sell you out. Okay, so I'm in these hearings, and it's 3 prosecutors and about 12 or so FBI who are all sitting on one side of the table. They don't introduce themselves. And it's me and my attorney on the other side of the table. And we often went on for 8 hours. Started about 9 o'clock in the morning, didn't get done until 5 or 6 at night. You know, and this was a grueling exercise. I said to David Gray, David, could they FBI come and knock down my door and just take all the computers and everything they want? He said, yes. So I said, we'll save them the trouble. Let's just give them everything. So I proffered all my computers, all my emails. I helped the FBI when they wanted to get double verification into my emails that required me to be on the phone to give double verification so they could get into the email. I'd tell them what the code was so that they could get in. I did that. Okay, and so finally, they decided.
Just for clarity, you cooperated with everything.
Everything.
One of the things that you said here that's really important that I think the public needs to understand is when the FBI is questioning you, you really need an attorney present to make sure that your rights are not being violated. So tell our audience how much a Washington attorney was going to cost you per hour. And keep in mind, this is 40 hours we're talking about. That's including no preparation, no briefing for your attorney. How much per hour did Washington attorneys quote you?
Well, they could charge you up to $1,000 or $1,200 an hour. I mean, depending on how high-powered the attorney was. General Flynn spent millions of dollars being represented, and his lawyers sold him out. Made a deal with the prosecutors. The benefit of the lawyers, not General Flynn. They convinced him to take a plea deal. And that was a mistake. He should not have taken that plea deal. But they were threatening to put his son in prison if he didn't take the plea deal. The prosecutors don't play fair.
No. And you know what's really sad to me is when I'm seeing like they're supposed to be for the people, but if we the people realized that the prosecution is obvious sometimes not for the people, really they're for themselves or for their case. They're not really, sometimes they're knowingly trying people that they don't really have enough evidence on to bring forth a case, or they are protecting their own. They're not protecting us, they're protecting their own.
Well, and the FBI will try you in front of a jury that hates you in Washington, D.C., knowing that they can convict you even if you don't have a case. They don't have a case.
Right.
And they tell you this. They tell your attorney this. So finally, after all of this, and they would get up and the first question that they asked, did I want to see Julian Assange? And I said, no, I really didn't want to see Julian Assange. Well, they all get up and all leave the room and bring my attorney over and said, well, they had an email with me and Roger Stone where I was willing to see Assange. And I explained to them that when they came, I told David, and David explained to them two things. Number one, I had Apple computers and the time machine, and to look at my past emails, my condition of my computer earlier, I would have had to have erased the current email, the current structure, and gone back to a date that I couldn't recover so it'd be very difficult to go back. And so
right.
I didn't want them to think I was erasing things on the computer. So I didn't look at the time machine. I just went in and talked to them, and I'd forgotten some emails. Okay. So I said to them, look, I knew where Assange was staying in the Honduran embassy right behind Harrods in London. Well, I know where Harrods is. I've been in London many times. And I could have gone over there and rang the doorbell and said, I want to talk to Julian Assange, Jerry Corsi. And he would say, well, why? I said, well, I want to know what kind of emails you're going to have that you're going to release. Well, he isn't going to tell me. Right. He's not going to let me scoop him. It was a waste of time. And so I really, but if I was working for WorldNet Daily, if Joseph Farah at that time had sent me an airplane ticket, I'd have gone to London just to show that it was not possible to get anything. Okay, but I didn't do it. And so the FBI let me amend that testimony. They suspended questioning me, sent me home. All my computers went to Quantico. They gave them back to me, and they gave me like 2 weeks to study everything I could study and then come back. I came back and amended the testimony and said, yes, I had wanted to see Julian Assange. I was willing, but I never actually did go. And I told them I didn't have any contact with Julian Assange. In fact, Julian Assange said he didn't have any contact with me, made that public. I had just figured out the emails, and they couldn't believe, they went through all kinds of contortions to get me to give up a name. Okay, now what happened at the end of this, after 40 hours, a couple of months, going back and forth to Washington, having the CNN sitting outside my home 24 hours a day to see if I was going to be arrested like Roger Stone was, horrible pressure that I'm going to go to prison for the rest of my life. And then the FBI said, okay, we're done with you. So we're going to just charge you with lying, and you will go to prison for the rest of your life because we'll bring the case in Washington, D.C. You favor Donald Trump. The jury will hate you, and they'll convict you whether you're guilty or not. Or you can take a plea deal. You can say that you had a tie with Julian Assange, you were hiding from us because you wanted to protect Roger Stone and Donald Trump. So that was a choice I was given. Now, I thought about that and struggled over that. And I knew that in the plea deal, they were saying the testimony they had allowed me to amend, I had lied about. And that was a mistake on their part because they allowed me. And when you amend testimony, it's no longer considered a lie because you've told the truth. You forgot something, and now you tell this is okay. Now that I remember that, here's the truth. And it was what they wanted to hear. Okay. And so I had wanted to see Assange is what they wanted to hear. And this was a horrible choice because I had to decide what to do in that period of time. Now, my wife at this time, we'd been married 32 years. I was 72 years old in 2018. And she one day, and I was in the bedroom looking at the computers, trying to figure out my desk, and she sat up in bed and woke up and said, "I'd rather spend the rest of your life visiting you in prison than not have you be the man I married." Now, when she said that, I said, "Okay, Monica, then I can tell these guys I'm not going to take their plea deal, because it's a family decision. I could have lost everything. Could have lost the home, could have lost everything."
Well, and not only that, but Dr. Corsi, the sleepless nights and the agony and that, like, you'll never get that back. I mean, like, it's so much undue stress when you're going through something like that that you are 100% innocent of. It is actually, like, unbelievably sickening. I can't even describe the feeling, the emotion, the PTSD that every time somebody may mention something else that may trigger something that you've heard or done. So, this is not what the American people, I don't think any party on either side of the aisle, any person, any human actually wants this for another human. So when we're saying we, the people in this FBI and the prosecutorial process, they're supposed to be working for us. The prosecutors are. And, the sad thing about it is if somebody comes along and says, you know what, we don't want this. This is not what we want. I mean, they also risk prosecution, being like, as though that they're involved when it's just an activist group supporting really bad decisions already being made by the FBI or the politicians or the prosecutors.
Well, so the Monday after Thanksgiving in 2018, I went into New York and went on national news and told the world that I was not going to take their plea deal. I could not imagine myself standing before a judge and God and swearing to a lie to stay out of prison. So I said, "Go ahead and get ready to put me in prison the rest of my life, and I'll just do that because I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't have a tie with Julian Assange, and I'm not going to say I did to lie and have you not put me in prison the rest of my life. I'd rather go to prison the rest of my life." So I made that decision. Then I went public, and I did all the news media that anybody wanted to do. I was on ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, you name it. I was on everybody. And in the end, they did not indict me. Instead, they closed down the Mueller investigation because they knew I didn't have a tie. They were just trying to pressure me to the point where I broke and would say anything in order to not go to prison. It's just that they didn't understand how I'm built, and I couldn't do that. It was good my wife supported me in that period of time. Now, what happened subsequently was that my wife wanted me to be out of politics, was pressuring me to quit doing podcasts. I would not be here with you today if she had not divorced me. If there was no divorce proceedings, I would have had to acquiesce to her wishes and would have had to quit. Mm-hmm. But instead, I've kept writing and I've kept doing podcasts and kept doing research and keep breaking stories and keep getting into trouble. But
for a while you actually did come
for
off.
A while.
Yeah,
for a while.
I even, I was even like looking for you, and I'd reached out to you just to make sure, number one, you were okay, because, I didn't know. I knew you had said in your last podcast, because I've been following you for a very long time. You were one of the people who woke me up in the original process of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they do this to people, this kind of thing to people in general, especially when you're just a researcher or you're just asking questions or in my world, I would have wanted to meet with Julian Assange as well. I mean, you want to ask questions if you're a curious person, especially if you're a journalist or any type of researcher. You want to ask questions to the direct person. So why would that tie you to that person in collusion with something? But, that's the type of thing that our prosecutorial process and our legal system has tried to do is, tie people together who, especially journalists, because that are going against the narrative, or researchers going against the narrative, because they do not want your investigations out there. I mean, we've seen that no matter which side of the fence you're on, that there's always somebody trying to shut something down, whether it be, like right now in our Republican Party, we have, the 2016 campaigners that you're talking about for Hillary Clinton. we have some of them in our Republican executive committee that claim that they worked for her. And why are they in going against the narrative of anybody who is speaking out against any kind of truth and who has been a supporter of Donald Trump? Meanwhile, they're in saying that they're a supporter of Donald Trump, but they're out defaming. They're out trying to falsify information to authorities. In other words, to stay, like as though they are the victims in the situation. And, they're just new Trump supporters. Oh, they're just new America first. They're proud to be members of now the Republican Party. Well, I'm sorry, but you don't, in my opinion, and I'm curious to your opinion, Dr. Corsi, does somebody just go from the Clinton campaign to the Trump campaign overnight, like flipping a switch?
No, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of Republicans who are not true Republicans. They're rhinos, Republican name only. And Trump has that problem still. And a lot of the bureaucracy who oppose Trump yet. And but continue this story is, so yes, I quit for a while, and then I started getting back to it. Now, my wife was born in Argentina, came to the United States, and became a citizen in the 1970s. And she wanted in 2015 to reconnect with four women who were her cousins that she hadn't seen in years. We had had a reunion here in our home in New Jersey with these women, and one of them brought her husband, Claudia. Well, Monica wanted to sponsor Claudia and her husband, Nestor, to get visas, including his son, Rodrigo. And I said, fine, let's do this. Monica wanted to do it. I was okay with it. They weren't going to get their visas. I ultimately had to call the U.S. ambassador in Buenos Aires and say that if he didn't release these people, the next call he would be getting would be from Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who I knew could reach. Well, the next day they got their visas and they came and they started living with us. Okay, so Nestor had moved in with Claudia, the cousin of Monica, and his son Rodrigo. And Claudia turned out was very ill. She had double mastectomy, 3 open heart surgeries.
Wow. And
they were treating her failing heart. And in December of 2021, she died in the house.
Wow.
Okay, that night I said goodbye to her and I knew she was passing, and she died during the night. And then in March 2022, a few months later, Monica started having an affair with Nestor, the husband of her cousin who had just died.
So your wife started having an affair
in the house
with her cousin's husband.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
How long after the cousin had passed away, Dr. Corsi?
Well, she passed away in December 2021, and Monica admits the affair was starting by March. I think it possibly even started while Claudia was alive, because one of Claudia's sisters, unbeknownst to the family, came here in New Jersey to try to convince Claudia to go back to Argentina to die, on the premise that Monica and Nestor were already having an affair. And Claudia just didn't want to do it. She was too sick to travel.
Right. Bless her heart.
And so she passed away. And then these two began. So then
your American citizenship to marry a woman, married to her for 32 years. She brings her cousin over, the cousin's husband, and their son, which would be her nephew. Mm-hmm. And out of good faith, you help them get their citizenship and everything, and your wife on you in your own house with her deceased cousin's husband.
Right. Well, I didn't know they were having the affair at that time. And Monica has admitted during the trial and during the depositions and the like that she started the affair in March of 2022. She didn't tell me until November 2022. And then she divorced me in April of 2023, after I made the last mortgage and the payment to the house in February 2023. And a couple of months later, she divorced me.
Wow.
So I paid off the mortgage, and now it's fast forward to 2025 in September, and the trial is going to begin on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And they're all still living in the house with me. But I've been living in the house now for 3 years to people who basically now hate me. Because it's Monica, her paramour now, Nestor and Rodrigo, and then her brother. I had to move out of a condominium to put my daughter in there when she got married. My daughter got married in this time. And so Carlos, her brother, and his wife. So there's 5 people in this house, and Rodrigo, who I don't speak to. I mean, I figured the judge allowed me to stay. I don't have anywhere else to go. And so the point is that the judge allowed me to stay here. And I figured that dealing with these people would be very easy to get into a confrontation. All they'd have to do is call the police. So I decided that my deal with it by assuming that they're all dead, and you don't talk to dead people. Of course, unless you're in a movie, you don't talk to dead people.
Right. And
so therefore I passed them by and ignored them because they're just dead, but they don't know it yet. I mean, that's in my imagination. That's how I can live with this reality. And so I essentially live in this house by myself for almost 3 years. And the house is big enough, there's space, and I have my study, which I'm in right now, another space in this house, which the master bedroom I still have. But it's a bizarre situation. And I think Monica just simply couldn't handle the Mueller investigation was so deeply traumatic that the relationship was destroyed. Our marital relationship was destroyed by it and never recovered.
Wow.
And it was very detrimental on economics and all kinds of other things. I mean, I have done well economically in my life, but this was another ruinous situation in which now the divorce, she wants to take the house and I get nothing is the current version of what she's going to argue. So that's got to be.
What is your prayer for relief for this upcoming week?
Well, I think the only fair solution here is to simply sell the house and do it 50-50 in the proceeds. And that's, after a 32-year marriage, I don't see what else you can do.
Yeah.
It's just too.
That seems very equitable to me. I was just curious if that had been discussed. I mean.
Well, it's been, the reason we're going to trial is she will not accept that solution. Her solution is I leave, she gets the house, I get nothing.
Wow. Yeah. I pray the courts are fair and equitable.
Well, I had to fire my first set of attorneys, or they say they fired me, but I'm very pleased with my attorneys right now. And I think, we've got, I feel very confident going into this that we'll have a fair hearing by the court and there'll be, God willing, a just solution to the problem. And I regret that it's happened. I was faithful to her. And it's something I never imagined would happen. I'd planned to die, or the marriage would be dissolved by one of us dying, is what I'd always planned.
Yeah.
At any rate,
my heart actually breaks for you, Dr. Corsi. I mean, really, it does. I mean, because I know what, like, on a small inkling of what it's like to go through just a minute bit of the pressure that a journalist goes through, nothing to the magnitude that you've gone through or that she's even gone through. But at the same time, to assume that you're just going to leave your home, your marital home that you had together after, actually bringing her house to her and family.
We've lived in this house for over, I think now, for 30 some years. And it's redesigned and doubled in size and remodeled, and it's finally the place where I had planned that I would live in until I died, and now that's all gone. So starting, she returned my bank accounts to me with all the money gone. And so I started out the divorce poorer than I was in graduate school.
Wow.
And you can't touch your assets on a divorce because then you're liquidating marital assets.
Mhm.
So therefore, it's been a very, very difficult 3 years. But what I've done, if you look at God's 5 stones, you can see in that period of time that God, I think God took her out of my life to put me back to work, is how I chose to look at it.
We did
Because-
miss you. I'm just going to say, Dr. Corsi, for what it's worth, I genuinely missed your voice when it was gone. I mean, really,
Well-
I even said to my mom several times, like, hey, have you heard Dr. Corsi come back on? I would even search for you, hoping that you would. And I even went back and listened to some of your old podcasts, your older research, because you are decades ahead of what's even occurring right now. So I want to get your take in our last 10 minutes of what do you take of the Comey indictment?
Okay, and before the point I want to make is that, if we'd stayed together, Monica, and I had not done this affair and all the rest of it, I would never have done the work on the elections. And because of Andrew Paquette, who did figure out the algorithms, he's a computer genius, and I understood him. I've been working with computers since early in college, I was working with computers in the early 60s. And so therefore, I know computers and how they work, and I understood and could validate that these codes were there. And we would not have Donald Trump in 2024, because I exposed the algorithms prior to the 2024 election. They did not use them in 2024 in the presidential election. You'll recall all the battleground states in 2024 stopped counting on election night and reported for Trump. If they did what they did in 2020, which is continue to count, and then produce all these mail-in ballots and run them through the machines, we would have caught them. I had it all set up to catch them. Intelligence agents called me up 3 months before the before the 2024 presidential election. Said, Dr. Corsi, you just won the election for Trump. I said, well, how? He said, well, because you found the algorithms and exposed them, they can't use them. So they'll use them in the down ballot elections, but they won't use them for president. I knew that 3 months before November 2016. Okay, and so we continue to do it. Now I'm exposing Act Blue, and I would like to kind of conclude with that after we talk about Comey.
Yeah, okay.
Now, Comey is one of the most corrupt and criminal directors of the FBI that we've ever had, maybe only seconded by Christopher Wray. Comey knew the Steele dossier was complete nonsense, and he used it out of his hatred for Donald Trump. He went to see Donald Trump and wore a wire on Donald Trump to try to get Trump to incriminate himself. They were engaged in knowingly going to the FISA court to get surveillance, NSA surveillance on Carter Page, who was a minor peripheral figure in the Trump campaign. And Comey knew that they were lying to the court to get the permission to do electronic surveillance on a U.S. citizen by an agency that's not supposed to, by law, surveil U.S. citizens. And Brennan was in on this, and Clapper was in on this, and the whole bunch of them. Obama knew that there was no Russian collusion, and he had intelligence reports prior to the 2016 election destroyed that said there was no Russian collusion. They made it up. They lied, and they created the Mueller investigation. Brought Roger Stone on trial and convicted him. They put Manafort in prison. He was Donald Trump's campaign manager. At the end of 2016, they destroyed lives. They lied. They cheated. They stole. And when you read my book, Silent No More, you'll see how I knew that and how I decided to beat them. And I had no idea. Usually when the federal government wants you in prison, you're going to prison.
Mm-hmm.
And so the chances are that I knew I was fighting an uphill battle. But the same with the divorce. Something I never planned to go through, but I know that I'll come out of it stronger, and I'll come out of it doing more things that God wants me to do. I'm still here. When I'm done what God wants to do, I won't be here any longer.
And hey, we'll have you for more time, and we won't have Monica saying that you can't go on air.
Well, I don't think Monica's going to have much influence over me on anything she wishes from here on. I think that's probably done irreparably, unfortunately.
Yeah,
you don't get a do-over on that kind of behavior.
I'm laughing, but it's.
I know that it's in a sense. I think people are saying how to make a reality show out of this, or a sitcom, or a Netflix movie, or something. I mean,
actually, I was actually thinking the same thing. I was like, can I write a screenplay?
Yeah, make a good screenplay. Yeah, but it is a ridiculous situation. But the point is, now Act Blue, I'm going to show that the Democratic Party got deeply in bed with the communist Chinese, with fentanyl, and they got deeply in bed with the child pornography and the border and organ harvesting from the children. And I'm even talking to Epic Times to work with them on these kinds of things. So this Act Blue, the Democratic Party funded Antifa, Black Lives Matter through money laundering, opening the border, through drugs and sex trade with children and organ harvesting. And that's what Act Blue is all about. And the banks were complicit in it. I caught HSBC money laundering in 2011 for the drug cartels. And I started reporting that for WorldNet Daily. And they ultimately paid $1.9 billion fine at HSBC. Nobody went to jail. Well, the money laundering that has been going on for the Democratic Party and the banks for communist Chinese money to come here into the United States, and every other bad actor, George Soros and all the rest of it. In Act Blue, they buy a house. The head of Act Blue.
Okay, hold on, Dr. Corsi, you're rubber banding, and this is so important. Dr. Corsi, isn't it wild that our guests start to, when we talk about communist China, and okay, you were rubber banding, so you start over. When Act Blue, we lost you there. I apologize, Dr. Corsi. You're literally your voice is gone. I can't even hear anything you're saying. So I'm going to talk a little bit until you get back about your article. So Dr. Corsi is, okay, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. You were rubber banding after you said Act Blue, believe it or not. So
well, Act Blue is the demise of the Democratic Party. And this I've been reporting on in my Substack and an American Thinker. The head of Act Blue would take out buy $1 million house in Palo Alto and get $50 million in mortgage loans. Okay, they show up in LexisNexis that the loans have been made, but that was not a real loan. That was taking drug money, child sex trade money, organ harvesting money, fentanyl money, cocaine money, laundering it through a bank and bringing it out into Act Blue, Antifa, Black Lives Matters through mortgage fraud.
Oh, interesting. So, Dr. Corsi,
it's all up on. I'm following all this on God's Five Stones right now. People, and this is my major new investigation, and it will bring down the Democratic Party.
Okay, so I've got some information that I want to give you off air because I don't want them to see it coming, and I want your genuine take on it to see if you can find anything that I have found directly.
I've been reporting with Sean Taylor, who is a whistleblower who has this information, and I got it to the FBI, and the FBI has begun an investigation of Act Blue.
Okay.
So I believe what I've found again is going to come out, and you're going to find all these things I've been doing. I'm talking about creating an anti-globalist organization. I'm talking about Silicon Satan, which is a novel you're showing about how the Silicon Valley has actually gone Luciferian. And I mean it seriously in terms of, orgies and sex on stage that involves killing someone to heighten the sexual excitement. I mean, it's just bizarre stuff, but it's happening. And Jeffrey Epstein and the like.
taking people like me, Dr. Corsi, and some of the same members that actually work for Hillary Clinton have actually doxed me several times utilizing Antifa. Thank God President Trump declared Antifa a terrorist organization via his executive order, because it is beyond anything concerning. So let me ask
I think the Democratic Party has become an anti-American, treasonous, violent organization itself, and run by communists now. AOC and this guy running for mayor in New York City.
Yes. Yeah.
I think Mayor Adams just dropped out of the race in order to try to boost the chances that this Mondami will lose.
That's correct. And we have a Mondami ourselves here by the name of Eileen Higgins. She has been called out by Emilio T. Gonzalez. They here in Miami-Dade County, we're basically somewhat running a uniparty where the Republicans and the Democrat seem to collude. I mean, I know no other way to say it other than collusion and corruption to hide their corruption, to they'll even, I've even got people that have come forward saying they're making backroom deals, attorneys that try to run for office, who have like been in school and like they're like a week away from graduation. If they say anything against the uniparty players, they are suddenly told they cannot graduate from school. They are automatically, they're disbarred before they're even barred. And it is shocking. I mean, absolutely shocking at the collusion. And so, in 2016, I started to really see, oh, wow, they're not interested in like having any help in the Republican Party. Oh, they're not interested in like venues to be able to host events for free. I've never seen that before. In Las Vegas, the Republican Party there is like very active and organized. And here, it's like, oh, we just don't want your help. Oh, that's because there are backroom deals being made for candidates.
There's far too much money being laundered and spent in corruption. And the Congress has these sex and drug parties been going on since Lyndon Johnson and before. And
who recently exposed that was George, what is his name? George, George, George from New York, congressman from New York. George, I want to call him Soros, but it's not Soros. Sorry.
That's all right. But I've been talking about it for years. I mean, I knew it even,
But they jailed him, Dr. Corsi. They jailed him. They tried to get him on a campaign violation, which is what they do. And I'm saying this because he is George Santos out of New York. Okay. So
yes.
They jailed him because he was telling about the backroom parties and about the congressman not even reading the bills and about how they're having sex in closets and everything. They didn't like it. And he was talking to his constituents.
Well, Lyndon Johnson's associate, Billy Celestis, I think they actually bought a hotel outside of Washington, D.C. and was running it as a brothel for Congress and other business leaders, etc. And so there's nothing new about Jeffrey Epstein, except maybe the more pedophilia than ever. And pedophilia seems to be the current addiction of this Silicon Satan class of transhumans that think they don't need to follow God's laws and think that they are can become post-human. They can become the Nietzsche Ubermen combined with machines. Been writing about this for a long time as well. The New World Order crowd.
Well, and the children sometimes are the currency. From
the children of the currency.
Yeah, they are the currency.
Well, there's a lot more money. There's a lot more money in child sex trade and child organ harvesting than there is in drugs.
Yes,
a lot more money.
Yeah, because drugs can be made. Children, are a little harder to come by. Whether and
children,
they can only once.
Children for sex are reusable. For organ harvesting, they just are throwaways.
Yeah, it's extremely heartbreaking, extremely sad, and unfortunately very real.
When people realize that this is the heart of the Democratic Party, it's what's funding the Democratic Party, and the people who are involved in this reach all the way to the top. I don't think the Democratic Party can survive.
Well, and there are, I will say this, that, I met with some Democrats last week and that were leaders in the Democrat Party, and they're trying to regain their party, as a whole. And, they are also the ones who also see the collusion between what I call the uniparty players. And so without that, we wouldn't know. So,
what I went through was the result of all this, because the FBI has become the enforcer of the cult, death cult, satanic cult that has become the Democratic Party. They moved past communism. Mm-hmm. They're now into mutilating children so they'll never have an orgasm or produce children, mutilating their bodies sexually before they turn the age of puberty. They're for abortion. Even Obama gave a speech on the Illinois legislature floor saying that a baby that was born could actually be killed because the mother didn't want it. That's infanticide. I was on when Alan Combs and Hannity were together, and Combs said, "Are you saying that Obama was supporting infanticide?" I said, "It's what it looks like to me. What else you want to call it?"
Well, and I say this too, Dr. Corsi, is, keep in mind, none of these people have ever sued anyone for saying these things because they don't want to go to any kind of anything, but in terms of, any kind of court proceedings or any kind of discovery.
Look, I've found the birth certificate in Hawaii from which Obama's was copied. And it's obvious. Ohio had that checked out by forensic labs. And it's clear that Obama does not have a legitimate birth certificate. One's never been released. What he released was a bad forgery. Mm-hmm. Of course, the press won't report that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Well, Dr. Corsi, we're out of time for today, but I definitely want to have you back. We're going to be praying for your upcoming proceedings. So I want our audience to pray for you. And my mom, and also my volunteer producer, has handed me a note to say, please ask Dr. Corsi to look at Joel 2:25.
Job, is that Job?
Joel.
Oh, Joel.
EL 2:25.
Yeah. 2:20.
Yeah, God will replace what the locusts have eaten, Dr. Corsi.
Yes, well, I'm not concerned about that.
Yeah.
I'm not. I have suffered losing everything more than once in my life, and it comes back.
Yeah,
it comes back abundantly.
Is a promise from God that he will restore the years of destruction caused by a devastating locust plague, stating, I will repay you for the years that the locusts have eaten. So we're just going to be praying for you, and, that things are a little bit easier so that you can get back to your election integrity work and your research as quickly as possible.
Well, the Act Blue is my passion right now. I really want to expose this Act Blue and get people to understand how deeply evil it is.
Yeah, I believe I may have some information for you guys to use in your investigation that I have not had time, that my investigation may link back to your investigation.
Okay.
Of the LLCs that I've found here in Miami-Dade County. So I will send those to you. I don't want to mention them on air because I don't want to, give any tip-offs. And I'm not about, if you're researching that, listen, any good investigator reporter works with a lot of other reporters.
I know we all have to work together on this story. It's a big story, and it has a lot of people need to work on it.
Yep. And in a normal news station, if we actually had one, you'd have maybe 20 or 30 people, including paid outside investigators, who are monitoring some of these people to see, where they're actually going, what they're actually doing. But we're not able to do that, because of the resources. So I definitely recommend everybody go to God's Five Stones, sign up, go to Patriots Perspective, sign up. I know you can donate on Patriots Perspective to, our broadcast, so that we can.
It's the same one. God's Five Stones is a 501c3.
Okay, we're not a 501c3. We're just, you're just giving out of the goodness of your heart for Patriots Perspective. So if you need a 501c3, please go to God's Five Stones, donate there, because, Dr. Corsi is doing amazing work. which, I utilize for my investigations, because I know that when he says it, he's investigated it thoroughly. It's not just something that he's spouting off the cuff, despite what Wikipedia might say about either of us. So, I say we're conspiracy realists, and, it might be a theory at first. And sometimes, Dr. Corsi, I don't know about you, but I'm sometimes hoping that I am wrong. But unfortunately, the majority of times it links right back to the same group of people doing the same things, pretending to be, a multitude out there that's really just a handful.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Okay, Dr. Corsi, I'm going to get you back on. I'll text you, after your proceedings and everything. God bless you.
Good. Yeah, I always say, in the end, God always wins. God will win here too.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it so very much.
Thank you. God bless.
Audience, thank you so much for listening here today. If you like Dr. Corsi's message, and please make sure that you also follow him. He has an amazing podcast, which I listen to. I have my notification bell set to listen to him, so I encourage you to do that. I will put all the links down below, including the links to his books. Make sure that you do go and read his books. They are absolutely amazing. He also has a Substack. Make sure you sign up for his Substack. And hey, if you are out there, I didn't even know God's Five Stones was a 501c3. So make sure that you do donate if you want to donate to a 501c3. Because believe it or not, you may end up finding out that your church is involved in some of these shenanigans going on. So please make sure that you do use those links below. Make sure that you follow us. Make sure that you hit the notification bell, like, subscribe, because believe it or not, even though you subscribed before, you may not be subscribed today. Somehow, many of you have been telling me that you've been unsubscribed. If you want to make sure that you're getting your email notifications, please make sure that you go to patriotsperspective.com. We are going to start emailing, hopefully by the end of this week, so that you also know if there's an episode that's airing on Rumble or YouTube, so that you have the links for all. We also will have the links up for all of the podcasts that we are on. So we are on almost every channel of podcast. We are working behind the scenes to get even old episodes up on the podcast, because believe it or not, a lot of this content is what's considered evergreen. Unfortunately, we are way ahead, sometimes decades ahead. And for right now, we are out of time. So I am out of here. And I want to remind you to do unto others as you would have others do unto you. God bless everybody.
Remember, take action. Take action. Don't let big tech win. Share this video with a friend now. Most importantly, do unto others as you would have others do unto you.